While promoting his upcoming film Tomorrowland, writer-director Brad Bird revealed a couple of interesting tidbits. First, he confirmed that The Incredibles 2 will be his next film and that he's already written a bunch of pages. He also elaborated on the fact that he's spoken to Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy about the possibility of directing a Star Wars film. On that notion, he stated, "I was particularly attracted to the idea of picking up a film in the franchise, and J.J. Abrams got very excited about the notion of shaping the next trilogy, and that idea was interesting to me too. But I'm writing the Incredibles sequel, and I can't think too much farther beyond that. I have other things I want to do as well." Schnepp, what do you make of Birds' comments?
I love that he's doing The Incredibles 2. We've been talking about this for years. Like, when is The Incredibles 2 going to happen?
Oh, I mean, no kidding.
So that it's actually happening, that he's actually making it and in charge of it, writing and directing it. There's no better news than that. So, I mean, I'm certainly excited to see maybe him take a spin at doing a Star Wars movie, you know, in the next couple of years. But to me, that he's doing The Incredibles 2 is just fantastic.
Christian?
I'm absolutely with you, Schnepp, as far as him doing The Incredibles 2. You want him to do it. You know, that, especially if his heart's in it. And it's nice to have him back if that's indeed the next thing he's working on. As far as Star Wars goes, now we're going to have, I'm still curious to how long the anthology films are going to be just once a year. I'm wondering if, because of all the different timelines and everything.
Every 2 years.
Right, every 2 years. We're getting a Star Wars movie every year, but every 2 years but I mean, as far as a Star Wars movie in general, we're getting one a year. So I'm wondering how long that's going to be before we start doing 2 a year, because of all the different time periods and stuff we do, because then we can, that'll, I think, enable us to get someone like a Brad Bird to do an anthology movie, because I'd like to see him do one of those. I think that the anthology movie for me right now, I'd rather see him do than part of the trilogy, because like he said, JJ ultimately shapes it. JJ starts with The Force Awakens. So even Rian Johnson and whoever follows Rian Johnson, whether it be JJ coming back or somebody else, they're following JJ's blueprint here. I'd like to see Brad Bird do something new, because with Tomorrowland, you know, without saying anything too much, it looks very original. That's great, original sci-fi. So get his spin onto a recognized franchise would be something fun.
There are so many things I love about this. Number one, look, you do AMC Rewind. And on part of that show, you got that, what we call the Feeling Old segment. We talk about movies turning 20. The Incredibles is over 10 years old.
Wow.
The Incredibles is over 10 years old. We've been waiting for a sequel to this. Like, look, there are, understandably so, you know, I don't mind sequels. I don't mind reboots, all that kind of stuff. But even people who aren't really big on sequels or reboots, even they know The Incredibles is a film that was begging to have a follow-up story. It was just begging. It was that quality type of film that everybody just got into, set itself up perfectly, that you could pick up a story the next week, or pick up a story 10 years down the line, or pick up a story whenever you want. It's animated, so it doesn't matter what you want to do. This is a movie that if you talk to people the last 10 years, what movie desperately needs a sequel? 7 out of 10 people are going to tell you, The Incredibles. The Incredibles, The Incredibles, The Incredibles. 10 years we've been waiting. I think it'll probably be 12 years by the time the movie eventually comes out, maybe 13 years since the original one released. But so it's great that he's returning to that. As far as the idea of Brad Bird visiting the Star Wars universe, after seeing Tomorrowland, well, first of all, I always thought there was some potential there for him, even though I wouldn't have put him in there myself. But there was potential there for him, because you look at films like the type of story narrative he can do with The Incredibles, right? He clearly knows how to get into characters. He knows how to get an audience attached to characters and use their emotional investment in the characters to his advantage on the big screen to make things really click and work. Then he goes and does that Mission Impossible film. Like, okay, we know he can do characters, but now he's coordinating these incredible action sequences and making us as the audience care about these action sequences. And most importantly, he's figuring out a way that a lot of action directors don't know how to do, tie the action directly into the narrative of the film, and everything becomes one pure engine that moves along. Now we see Tomorrowland, and everything's embargo, but I will say this about Tomorrowland. We also see now in Tomorrowland, he's got the imagination. He totally has the imagination for it. And so I would love it if this can happen. No, it's not going to be the second anthology film that Josh Trank is no longer doing. It's probably not going to be episode 9. But remember, Star Wars, they got plans beyond the next 5 years. So I think at some point we're going to see him do one.
And it's funny because, again, not giving anything away from Tomorrowland, but you can tell just watching Tomorrowland, he's a Star Wars fan.
You can tell. Oh my God, you're so right. Trust, when you see Tomorrowland, you'll know exactly, this dude's a Star Wars fan.